The golden light of evening stretched across the valley like honey poured from heaven's jar. Sarah wiped the sweat from her brow and stepped back to admire her work. Another log had found its place in what would someday be her cabin. The structure stood waist-high now, a testament to weeks of careful planning and patient labor. She had chosen this spot for its perfect view of the mountains, and the way the morning sun would kiss her future kitchen window. The creek bubbled nearby, providing fresh water and a gentle song that made even the hardest work feel peaceful. This was her dream taking shape, one heavy log at a time. Sarah lifted the next timber, feeling the familiar burn in her shoulders. The wood was rough against her palms, still smelling of pine and possibility. She had learned to notch each log carefully, making sure they would fit together like pieces of a puzzle. Her grandfather had taught her the old ways before he passed, and now his lessons guided her hands. Steady now, she whispered to herself the same words he used to say from the ridge above. Jake Matthews watched the woman work. He had been riding this trail for 3 weeks now, always at sunset, always stopping when he reached the overlook. At first he told himself he was just checking on a neighbor's progress. Then he admitted he was curious about the woman brave enough to build alone. Now, he could no longer deny the truth that sat heavy in his chest. He was lonely. Jake had been alone for 2 years now, since fever took his wife, Emma, and their unborn child. The house that once rang with laughter had become a tomb of memories. He went through the motions of living, tending his cattle and horses, but the joy had drained from his days like water through a broken bucket. Watching Sarah work stirred. Something in him, he thought, had died with Emma. It wasn't just her determination, though, that impressed him. It was the way she stopped to appreciate small things: a hawk circling overhead, wildflowers blooming near the creek, the way shadows danced on the mountains. She found beauty in the world that he had forgotten existed. Sarah struggled with the next log. It was heavier than the others, and she couldn't quite lift it into place. She tried different angles, bracing her feet and using her whole body, but the timber remained stubbornly earthbound. Frustration crept into her chest. She had come so far, but moments like these reminded her how alone she was in this endeavor. She sat on the log to catch her breath, looking at her hands. They were rough now, with calluses that told the story of her work. Sometimes she wondered if she was foolish to attempt this alone. Her family back east certainly thought so. They had begged her to stay, to marry the banker's son, to choose safety over dreams. But Sarah had always been different. She needed space to breathe, room to grow, and a place where she could build something with her own hands. This cabin represented more than shelter. It was proof that she could create the life she wanted, even if it meant walking an unconventional path. The sound of hoofbeats made her look up. A rider was approaching, silhouetted against the dying light. Sarah's hand moved instinctively to the rifle leaning against her supply wagon, but something about the man's posture seemed peaceful. He was taking his time, not rushing like someone with bad intentions. Jake's heart hammered as he guided his horse down the slope. He had wrestled with himself for 20 minutes before finally deciding to approach. What would he say? How could he explain his presence without seeming like a fool or, worse, a threat? Evening, ma'am, he called out when he was still a respectful distance away. Sarah studied him carefully. He was tall and lean, with kind eyes and hands that spoke of honest work. His horse was well cared for and his manner was gentle. Still, she kept her distance. Evening, she replied. I'm Jake Matthews. I ranch about 5 miles north of here. He gestured toward the ridge. I've been watching you work on your cabin. Impressive progress. Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks. You've been watching me. Jake's face reddened. I ride this trail regular like. Couldn't help but notice. I hope you don't mind me saying, but you're doing fine work. Building alone isn't easy. No, it isn't, Sarah admitted. Something in his voice made her shoulders relax slightly. I'm Sarah Coleman. Pleased to meet you, Miss Coleman. Jake paused, gathering courage. I couldn't help but notice you're struggling with that log there. If you wouldn't mind the help, I'd be happy to lend a hand. Sarah's pride warred with practicality. She had been determined to do this alone, but the truth was, she needed help. And there was something about this man that felt safe, familiar. Even, I suppose I could use another pair of hands, she said finally. Jake dismounted and approached the log. Together they lifted it into place with ease. The simple act of cooperation felt like a revelation to both of them. Sarah was surprised by how natural it felt to work alongside someone again. Jake was amazed by how right it seemed to be building something instead of just maintaining what already existed. Perfect fit, Jake said, running his hand along the notch Sarah had cut. My grandfather taught me well, Sarah replied, pride evident in her voice. They worked in comfortable silence as the sun set, adding to more logs to the growing walls. When darkness finally forced them to stop, Jake made no move to leave immediately. Miss Coleman, he said hesitantly. I wonder if you might accept some help on a regular basis. I mean, if you wouldn't mind the company. Sarah studied his face. In the moonlight, She saw loneliness there that matched her own, but also something deeper. Hope, maybe. The possibility of connection. Asterisk, I think I'd like that, Mr. Matthews, she said softly. Asterisk, over the following weeks, Jake came every evening. After his ranch work was done, they fell into an easy rhythm, working side by side as the cabin took shape. They talked about everything and nothing, the weather, their dreams, the way the mountains changed color with the seasons. Asterisk, Sarah learned that Jake had lost his wife and child, that he had been drifting through life like a ghost. Jake discovered that Sarah had left everything familiar to chase a dream of independence, that she was building more than a cabin, she was building a new life. Asterisk, as autumn painted the valley in shades of gold and crimson, the cabin neared completion. The walls stood strong and true, ready for the roof that would shelter Sarah through the coming winter. But somewhere along the way, the dream had expanded to include something she hadn't expected. Asterisk, love had built itself into the structure, quiet and strong like the logs themselves. Asterisk, standing in the doorway of her finished cabin, Sarah watched Jake chopping wood for her winter supply. His movements were sure and practiced, and she realized she couldn't imagine this place without him in it. Asterisk, Jake, she called out. Asterisk, he looked up, axe still in hand, sweat gleaming on his brow. Asterisk, this cabin feels awfully big for just one person, she said. Asterisk, Jake's smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. I was thinking the same thing, Sarah, I was thinking the same thing. Asterisk, the cabin they had built together would shelter more than just one woman's dreams. It would be home to the family they were ready to become, built on a foundation as solid as the logs they had placed with such care, one piece at a time.